Tell me, though, does man, that marvel of the universe, that glorious paradox who sent me to the stars, still make war against his brother? Keep his neighbor's children starving?
Apes! Do not want war!
I know where we are. I know what has happened.
Join me.
This will be the end of human civilization!
What a wonderful day!
We have traveled from Earth's future to Earth's past.
You cannot save them. Apes all die here.
That's a lie!
Say his words.
Unfortunately, I am but a mortal ape.
Perverted scientists who advance an insidious theory called evolution.
I believe it will deliver instant evolution.
Now they may have got their hands on some of our guns, but that does not make them men.
But will fight if we must.
And that day is upon you now!
Do not come back.
If man was superior, why didn't he survive?
It was unlike anything you've ever seen before, and the leader, he was remarkable.
Don't look for it, Taylor. You may not like what you find.
What a wonderful day! Say his words! Apes together! Strong!
Caesar. Weak. Cobra. Weaker.
Hello everyone and welcome to Ape Business. We're gonna do something today that is a long time in the making, long time coming, something we should have been doing a long time ago. We're gonna talk about a series of movies that prominently features monkeys. My favorite animals, a lot of people's favorite animals, should be your favorite animal if it's not your favorite animal. But just finally going to give monkeys the respect they deserve on this podcast. So we're talking about the Planet of the Apes franchise series. We're talking about the old ones and the new ones and the newest one. Joseph has seen 5 of them. I've seen 9. So this is going to be just a loose discussion. So we're just going to kind of go back and forth, try to keep the conversation 50-50 as much as possible. Spoilers. We're just going to go for it, I think, unless you want to hold stuff back, Joseph. I think spoil everything.
Spoilers.
Okay, so we're going to spoil Planet of the Apes from '68, and we're going to spoil the new trilogy, Caesar's trilogy, with the CGI ones, and we're going to spoil Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. So if you want to see those and you haven't, make sure you check them out before you listen to the rest of this. I will not be spoiling Beneath, Escape, Conquest, or Battle. So if you haven't seen those yet, then don't fear. All right, let's go for it.
You want to start with last or first?
Let's start with the last. I'll go with I'm just trying to think. We'll go with a ranking. I guess is the best way to do this. Never done something like this before. We've like some of us haven't seen them. So I'll say last place for me is Battle of the Planet of the Apes. This was the 5th film of the original films. It was the last one of the originals. It's not good. It's a conclusion to the big series that started with Planet of the Apes and then went through a couple movies, some good, some bad, and then just concluded in this really, really stupid, really, like, they're all B movies. They're all sci-fi B movies from the 60s that have like cheesiness and just silly production design. You can make fun of the masks, all you want. I I think they work, especially for the
I
time.
thought they're pretty
I
cool.
think they're
Yeah.
pretty great effects. Like once you really sink into it, I think they work well. But there's just no sense of scale in this. There's it's supposed to be this, grand epic that finishes them, but they just kind of fight in a field to conclude it. It's very, very thin on plot. The apes have their setup city, little makeshift one that they have in, most of the series, but in this one it looks just so cheesy. It looks so fake. It looks just like a tree house that was built, for a kid, and the monkeys are living in it, and then the humans coming across uh, just a field, like looks like a park, that you'd see out in Howard County somewhere. And very, very lackluster. There's one good scene in this movie that I recall. It's Caesar gives a good monologue. Out of all the movies, since this one is like the cap on the original story series, I would say skip this. You're missing absolutely nothing. There's like, if you finish with the fourth one, Conquest, you're good, really. You don't need to see this. It adds nothing to the story, nothing to the lore, nothing to the characters, and that like there isn't really even a good conclusion. It's just silly, goofy. Skip it. Don't watch Battle for the Planet of the Apes. But that's the worst of them. We're out of the way. Joseph, you want to start with your fifth?
Okay, my fifth is going to be Rise of the Planet of the Apes. So I thought it's been a while since I watched it. It's been probably like 2 years, but it wasn't like a bad movie. It was just like kind of whatever. I mean, James Franco's character was cool. It was just like nothing really stood out about it. Like it's obviously best when when Caesar finally speaks, but that's like in like the last 25 minutes of it. So just leading up to there, it's just like wasn't really interesting, or not interesting, but it wasn't really like captivating at all.
Yeah, I kind of feel with that. It just doesn't have the punch that it really needed to, I think. Ha-
Yeah, it just felt kind of like generic.
I say that, but I really like Rise. I think Rise is a tale of two halves. I think the first half, where James Franco is the main character, is like it's not in any way bad. It's just a whole different movie from the second half, where Caesar gets locked in the like animal control for apes that they have in California for some reason. There's a lot of Roman apes there that they throw into the jail. But as soon as that happens, Caesar becomes the main character in the second half, and it becomes incredible, in my opinion, at least. I think it becomes incredible. But yeah, the first half where James Franco is just like working as a scientist with the other scientists and talking to the business people, trying to create the Alzheimer's cure. It's like it's a good setup, and it's like a really interesting way to kind of start the how the apes, became smart, became the species that they are by the timeline of the originals. But yeah, it's not as captivating as it needs to be. But the second half focuses on Caesar and just focuses on him building relationships with like Maurice and Rocket. Not really Koba, but mainly Maurice and Rocket. And like he has a rivalry between with him and Rocket that's just really good. It's so well done, I think. And his friendship with Maurice starts to bud. You see a little bit there.
Yeah, second half is definitely a lot better than the first.
Like that stuff inside the monkey prison is just like that's the core of this series. That's how it works. It's like taking how humans function like down to its basic level, the level of, an ape, a monkey. And like they can't talk, but they communicate, Maurice knows sign language, Caesar knows sign language.
Mm.
It's where you get, him saying apes together, he snaps a stick, they're weak. And then apes alone, weak. Picks up four sticks,
Apes
apes
together
together,
strong.
strong. And he can't break it. And Maurice looks around and he goes, apes stupid. And it's funny, but it's like, that's what Maurice believes as of now because he lives and he sees all these chimps like fighting with each other constantly. But Caesar comes and he just works to unite them, not through just force, but through friendship. It sounds stupid to say, but he establishes dominance through strength, but he also works with him. He
Brings them
comes to the
together.
level. He, talks to the gorilla and he makes friends with him. And that's how he gets Rocket to kind of submit to him because he's able, I forgot exactly what he does with the gorilla, but somehow he and the gorilla become homies, the gorilla Buck. And then he's able to steal the key and let him out of his cage. And so it's like, me and Buck, we're together, Rocket. You can't beat us. And then Rocket's like,
Yeah,
I can't. So he joins him. And then Rocket's character development of the trilogy is amazing. What do you think of like the bridge charge at the end? Them running through there.
that was pretty cool. Yeah, the military and everybody stopping them, trying to stop them.
These movies get accused of being silly a lot. Do you think? How do you feel about that?
I think the last two are definitely more serious than Rise is. I feel like War is definitely not really that silly at
Oh
all.
yeah. Do you think that's because you've warmed up to the what these movies are trying to do with the monkeys riding horses, or do you think it's just because those movies are better?
I mean, I do think they're better, but yeah, I do think this one is kind of less serious than the next two.
A little bit, just in tone, yeah. But yeah, the apes like just rampaging through San Francisco. They go to the zoo and let all the other ones out. It's amazing. And then like there's that famous shot is just it's just the greatest thing in the world where they're standing on top of the trolley, the four of them, and the camera zooms in, and then the thing with that is like it turns around, it shows the back of their heads, and they're looking at the Golden Gate Bridge, and it's just so funny. It's like it's trying to be like so epic, and it is at the same time. It's like the coolest thing ever and the funniest thing you ever see because it's these first species of monkeys, and they're like, "We're going to the bridge. We're gonna take the bridge, man." It just cracks me up, man. And yeah, just them working together, pushing the bus, swinging underneath. So cool. Love Rise. Good movie. Would you recommend it, Joseph? Do you think it's worth a watch?
Yeah, I think you kind of have to start with it
I mean, yeah, if you're gonna get into
because yeah,
the trilogy, you gotta start with this one. Would you say the trilogy overall is worth it?
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
definitely.
I'll go to my second to last, which is my eighth. Number eight is Beneath the Planet of the Apes. This is the second one ever made. It was right after Planet of the Apes. It was like a year after Planet of the Apes, right?
Yeah,
It
yeah, I
was.
think it was.
Yeah. No, it was 2 years. It
Oh
was
yeah,
19,
and then the third
1970.
one was a year after.
Okay, yeah. But
Yeah,
they made these like really fast. It was crazy. But the biggest like downfall of this one is that for the first hour, it's just the same exact thing as the first one with a different astronaut. So it's not great. It's just kind of a rerun and you've seen it. That's the first act. The second act is really good. It's really interesting. There's like dynamics between the gorillas and the orangutans in the ape city once the new lead character goes to the ape city. And then the third act, I'm not going to spoil anything, but it's just very underwhelming, which is very strange considering what it does, because what it does is just unbelievably absurd. There's like a couple plot twists in this because they're trying to, it's the plot twist franchise. And they're trying to outdo themselves, not really outdo themselves, but they're just trying to, you know, give audiences more of that. And it's like it's so strange that it almost breaks the lore, like instantly in the second movie. That's why I was kind of like saying, I was trying to get Warren and Will to watch Kingdom, but they wouldn't. And they were like, "Do you have to watch, the trilogy?" And I was like, "You should. You don't have to because you can really watch any of these movies except for Dawn and War, and you can just pick it
yeah,
up, really. Like there is
yeah.
no
Because
sense of
Kingdom's kind of like a new, fresh
yeah,
start.
but there's no sense of story and there's no sense of like straight through line that these movies have. Like because the second one instantly breaks the lore. In the third one, they time travel. In the fifth one, there's a weird reset, and so it like nothing makes sense. But like I think it really works in its favor because it would have been hard to balance that over, multiple decades and try to run it together. Instead, it just kind of each one tells the story it wants to tell and just works with the themes of the franchise. I think they all work really well, mostly. Beneath is okay. It's lackluster, as I said. I said that about Battle too, but that's just what these are. But this one is like, in terms of like just technical quality, it's on the level of the first one. It's not like Battle at all. It's like you can tell they made some cool sets. and the costumes, makeup are still incredible. Acting is great.
Mm.
It's worth a watch because of what I'll get into, but it's it's okay. Your fourth and my seventh might be the same. My seventh is Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. Is that for you?
I'm kind of deciding whether it's gonna be Kingdom or War.
Okay.
I know you're big on War, but I think it's good. I think it is gonna be War actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll talk about my seventh though. My seventh is Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. This is the newest. First thoughts on Kingdom. What do you think?
I'm not really a big fan of Noah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be honest, but I do think it was a good movie. It's a good adventure story type movie, like you said. I don't really see the sequels being any good. I'm sure they'll be entertaining. I just don't think the sequels are going to be any good because it's setting up another apes versus humans conflict, which we've already got like so many or so much of that, and that's why I think. Well, I won't spoil what my number one is, but that's why my number one is my favorite because that's apes versus apes. I mean, there's humans involved in that, but it's at its best, it's ape versus apes,
hmm
and this is setting up apes versus humans again. So
Okay.
that's why I don't think the sequels are going to be great.
That's fair. I'm worried about the sequels. I'll say that. I don't think Wes Ball is going to be coming back. I think he's going to do Zelda or whatever now. If you've heard about that. But
I didn't think it. I don't think
I I think he does okay with this. It's just actually I don't know. It's fair, man. I've been thinking this over. It's just it's such a conflicting movie for me because like there's yeah we're spoiling this. Okay, so Noah, you said you're not a big fan of him, right? I'm almost there with you. I'm not entirely sure yet. I think it really lies in the sequels. I think this is a like a strangely, like you said, it's a big setup movie. It's going to be, what's to come because they kill off the villain in this movie. They kill off like a side character in this
cut off
movie.
like the best character.
Yeah, like yeah, I mean Proximus is
Which
the best
he might
character.
not
Yeah,
actually be dead, but
they're saying, but like I don't know, man.
I think he's gone.
He got pretty he
That
he
was a
seems
big
pretty
drop.
dead. It was a pretty big drop, yeah. I think like I think Raka could be alive. Like, I'm really hoping he's alive
Yeah,
because
like the gorillas, like and like the big ones riding horses with the masks.
yeah,
That was really cool. I hope we get more of that.
yeah. Um, but yeah, Noah is the lead in this, and he's just kind of like the least interesting of the characters in the movie,
Yeah,
which
he's
really
just like
sucks.
doesn't really have anything going for him.
Yeah, not much. I mean, I think they set him up really well. I like the first hour of this, honestly, just because I love these movies, man. I have such a soft spot for them. I could just watch the monkeys swinging around, jumping, and trying to climb into the nests of the eagles just all day. And then they're talking to the eagles. He talks to his dad. He talks to his mom. He goes around. He rides his horse with his friends. Um, and then he goes off and he meets Raka, and they kind of chill and they just talk about Caesar, and that's like the best. That's the best stuff. But like as soon as
Yeah.
Raka dies, it really I don't like it goes downhill for me, which is weird because that's when Proximus Caesar shows up, who is the best character in the film, and he's
Yeah.
so vibrant, and he's just like he has the captivating power that we were talking about. Like you just
Mhm.
eyes glued to the screen whenever he's there. Such a
Yeah,
great performance.
everybody was talking about it. They still
Yeah,
are.
uh-huh. Such a good performance from Kevin Durant, the basketball player. He quit and now he's doing motion
He's
capture.
doing voice acting,
Oh
motion
yeah,
caps,
he played a very good King Monkey. But
and Frank Gallagher too. He's
yep,
in this.
from Shameless, William H. Macy. But William H. Macy's character is also really interesting, right? Because
Yeah, that was interesting actually.
he like he plays a person, not an ape. William H. Macy is a human who is working with the apes now. He's kind of not in an evil way that, has been shown before. He's not like nefarious and be like, I hate humans, I'm siding with the apes. He's kind of just given up. He's like, it's not our world anymore. It's a planet of apes. They clearly are the ones who run this world because it's set 300 years or something after Caesar's trilogy, which is set like 50 years in the future from now. So it's like, it's like it's probably almost 400 years from today that Proximus Caesar takes over. William H. Macy has kind of given up on the world and he's just working with the apes. They give him, like shelter, safety, they're not gonna kill him.
Books.
They give him they got a huge library for him, and in exchange he reads the books and he tells them the information. He's trying to be like the teacher, helping him become smarter like people, because that's what Proximus is obsessed with. Fast evolution. That's why he's trying to get in the vault. It's a conflicting movie because like there's so many concepts that work so well in this. Like Caesar's symbol, his window, and his all his words, and what he stands for, becoming twisted and then being used to just lead apes to do just into leading apes into servitude, starting this system of, there are the worker apes and then there are the leader apes, and it's used to keep them under control instead of using them the teachings of Caesar to unite them. There's the stuff with the eagles, like, they're kind of becoming more civilized. They're working with other animals and being able, not just horses, not just, feeding and riding them, but I mean that takes a lot of skill too. But they have, birds that they can use and send messages and they can hunt with them and do that and all. That's really cool stuff. But it all kind of falls flat emotionally. There's just not a lot of core there, unfortunately. Like,
May's the real villain.
do you think May's an interesting character in this?
I don't think she's a bad character. I mean, like, I think she's a bad character, but I don't think she's like a bad character. Like, she's evil. As soon as we're introduced to her, she's stealing from them, and then she's just using them the entire rest of the movie.
Yeah.
And even at the end, like she's ready to kill him, even though
Yeah, where she's got the
it
gun.
was,
So yeah, it's a weird twist because like they're trying to really subvert the expectations because it's of, the most recent one besides Kingdom, they had this girl that they carried around that followed them. They had to take care of, and then she was, just kind of loyal to them and needed them for protection. And then you're supposed to assume the same thing with May as she's, trying to steal from them. And then it's Noah who kind of learns about humans because of May. Rocket tries to teach her, Rocket tries to make friends, and then I liked May. I really did until the twist, I guess, because like now in retrospective, I'm conflicted. It's like
mm-hmm.
I don't know how I feel about her overall. The one thing these movies do is they never carry over the human characters. Human characters are for one movie and then they're gone in the next one, and the apes remain because everything is from the apes' perspective. They are the main characters of this movie. It's their planet. And so like because these movies, they don't side with the humans. They side with the apes. And I think like I got the feeling like in the third act that this movie was siding with the humans. That it was like saying William H. Macy's character is like evil.
Yeah, she just killed him for no reason.
Yeah, just kill them. Well, he was
Like,
gonna like
well, you
I
could have
mean,
just like knocked him out. You don't
he
have
was
to
gonna
kill
get
her.
her killed. So it's like, but like
Well, yeah, but
like considering,
I
what
mean,
she's
but they already got caught doing that the next day anyway. So
yeah, but it was kind of after they accomplished most of their mission. I mean, they got in and
yeah,
they
but they
got it
got in
open and
like
they
right
flooded it.
after they killed him, so it wouldn't have mattered anyway.
Yeah, I guess not. So yeah, it's stuff like that that just makes this very disappointing, I guess. There's so much greatness in it, but it just falls a little flat for me. Um, Mainly, I think my problem with this is I think I told you this, right? I think we talked a little bit. It's just a generic adventure movie at the end of the day, with,
Yeah.
the incredible CGI as expected. Some great characters, some great character dynamics and dialogue, but it's just about Noah and his two friends. Um, and they're just kind of facing up against the big bad guys that come in and destroy their village. there's really not a lot of nuance in it in the way that most of these movies, at least the good ones, not just the good ones, because this is a good one, but the great ones have. Um, it's missing in this, unfortunately.
Mhm.
Just the, the gray area, the ethics of it all, the internal struggle and the questioning of they try to have that. They try to have, the questioning of the law and, you know, what do you believe in and what are you gonna, choose to follow and stand for? And it just doesn't work as well as the good ones do. I don't know why, but it's a tiny bit disappointing, I guess, from what I was expecting.
Yeah. And also, I feel like they're trying to make Noah Caesar. Like not exactly, but like that's what they're trying to do. Like they should just make him like his own character. He doesn't need to be like a big leader or anything like that.
I can see that, I think, because it's kind of like Caesar in Rise in this one. He's starting to become the leader. He's starting to make friends and try to rally the tribe. And he's the like his parents are both important. I think they're elders. They're not like the head monkey or whatever, but they're elders in the tribe. So
Mm.
he's going to be kind of like a successor there and kind of start to lead. And I'm rooting for Noah. I like him. I think a little bit more than you do. I think he could be great. I don't know if how I think they're making a trilogy, but I think by the end of the trilogy, I think he's got a lot of potential. I hope. But yeah, the problem is like Caesar was always the most interesting character in those movies, and then there was like just
He's not the most
incredible,
interesting character in this one. It's just
yeah. Despite the incredible side characters in the original trilogy, it was always Caesar that led it. And like in this one, you really kind of wishing that really Noah wasn't the lead, sadly. Good movie. Would recommend.
he's in like every single scene almost, isn't he?
I think so, yeah. Which I liked. I like that because they're from the apes' perspective. You're supposed to side with these guys. I'm
Yeah.
concerned that they're not gonna be siding with them at the end, which like it just kind of like I really think the original trilogy, not the original, but the trilogy is just a miracle, really, because they're able to, make a blockbuster. It wasn't. It was, in the past, started in 2011, but it's not that long ago, and they're able to side against humanity. I think that's just so ballsy, and I'm just worried that like we're not ever going to get something like that again, and it's that feeling is starting to seep through with Kingdom. Could turn around, not sure, but we'll see.
Yeah. I saw some people think that Proximus was a descendant of Koba.
Because he is
I
a
could
bonobo, yeah.
I could see that, yeah. He's a lot bigger.
He is a lot bigger. He's a chunky monkey. I mean, you can theorize about that, but I mean, there's no way to, there's no ape lineage that you can trace. But he's a descendant of Koba in spirit, because he
Yeah.
says these things and he doesn't mean them in the way that they're truly supposed to mean.
He's manipulative like Koba was.
Yes. But he's a great character, man. Sad to see him go. And Rocco was a great character, man. Sad to see him go. I really, really hope he's not just dead. Um,
Yeah, I
because he
don't
totally
actually
he
think
totally could be like when he died, like I was waiting for him to come back the entire movie. I was like, he's just gonna wash ashore, right? Because he gets swept away in a river, which
yeah, it didn't seem like they were making him drown because
it like he
like
totally
when
could have drowned in that, but he totally could have not drowned in that. It could have gone either way. Hard to say. But I was totally expecting him to just come up in a triumphant, return. Oh, I'm not dead moment, which I would have loved, as cheesy as it would have been, but
yeah.
it was not to be. So that's Kingdom.
And then War.
You have War.
I
Um,
have War, yeah.
let's talk about Dawn before we talk about War. How about that?
Dawn, okay.
Because
Yeah.
we've talked about Rise. It wouldn't make a lot of sense to jump to the third. So Joseph has War at fourth. I have Kingdom at seventh. I'll say my next two. In number six, I have Conquest for the Planet of the Apes. This is the fourth movie from the originals. It's great, really. It's about Caesar, the character of Caesar. who is not the character of Caesar in the original trilogy. He is just another ape named Caesar, and he is he's a special ape because he can talk, and he's essentially one of the apes from the Planet of the Apes. It's hard to explain this without getting into spoilers, but it's at a time in the world where humans still run the world, and all dogs and all cats have been killed off by a virus, and so apes of all kinds have replaced them as household pets. And this is about Caesar kind of um, assimilating into that world and kind of rallying up all the apes and starting a revolt, and really just starting at the lowest level. He gets thrown in a prison, and he gets it. Rise of the Planet of the Apes takes a lot of inspiration from this. It's the most those of all the movies in the trilogy of in the series, these two are the most alike, which is like really
Sounds like
it's really awesome to say because like every movie in here is so unique and so original. And like I said, there's no through line, there's no story. Even even the trilogy that's the Caesar trilogy that's tightly woven, they're all so different and unique, and I just love that. It just makes for really cool movies. But Conquest and Rise are kind of similar. So if you like Rise a lot, you're gonna like this one a lot. It's similar, it's slow, but there's no James Franco, so that's a huge plus. Um, it's similar, it's got that slow pace where Caesar's just trying to like work with the apes, make friends with the apes. There's a great scene where he has a banana and he's thrown into the prison, and all the other apes kind of like there's like three other he's thrown into a room with three others, I think, and they all kind of like try to get the banana from him, and then he just like stands up and growls and just makes himself known, just shows that he's the dominant one, and they back away. And then he peels the banana and he splits it into four pieces and he gives them out. And like that's like I just love that moment so much. That's everything you want from a character like that.
Mhm.
He shows that he's the leader, and then he leads by example. And he's like, I'm one with you guys. I need you guys and you need me, and apes together strong pretty much. And then at the end, you get a great third act just like Rise, where they kind of break out and they take over. Really good stuff. Ends with it has a very like crazy ending where it's just like he goes on another great monologue. I say another because I talked about Battle. Battle is the sequel to this, and it sucks. Don't watch it. Caesar's in this and in Battle, and so Caesar kind of takes over the city, and then it cuts to Battle where he's kind of running it. But he just like gives a really good speech to all the apes, and then just kind of cuts to black, cuts to credits, and it's like, dang, that's a wild ending, very strange ending, but it really works because it's a great monologue. Very dark but very stirring. Yeah, highly recommend it. It's from directed by J. Lee Thompson, who directed Battle, which is bad unfortunately, but this he also directed this. And he's really good. He's directed a couple movies that I really like. He's low key like one of my favorite filmmakers. Low key, very, very, very low
Wow.
key. But
High praise.
I like him a lot. I think like he's got one misstep, and overall he's done a lot of good movies. And he's like a very, very little known director, so check him out. This is a good one. At sixth place, I have Rise. No, fifth place, I have Rise. We talked about that, so I'll move on. I'll give my fourth just so we can sync up a little bit, but we won't talk about it. My fourth is Planet of the Apes, the very first one, the original. Um, we'll get to that. We'll talk about that in a second. Do you want to give your third?
Okay, so yeah, my third was Kingdom. Kingdom, that was my third. And then we already talked about that. Then second or
Okay. My third is War for the Planet of the Apes. I'm just this is it's very confusing. I'm trying to talk about these in somewhat of an order, but it's hard to because our lists aren't syncing up, and there's like three movies that have a story and the rest don't, so we gotta talk about certain ones in order. Sure, go to two for you.
two. Okay, two I have Dawn.
All right, perfect. I wanted to talk about this one before we talked about War because it is the second film of the trilogy in this franchise. Thoughts on Dawn?
I think it's the newer ones are best when it's apes versus apes, and that's what it gives us. And it also, unlike in War, it doesn't make the humans like the bad guys. I mean, there's like that one guy who is trying to convince everybody that the apes they should like kill the apes, attack the apes, but
Mhm.
it doesn't portray the humans as evil. It just they're just kind of
Exactly.
both existing, and then Koba really does the initiation by attacking them, but and then it goes apes versus apes because it's not that one's not just apes versus humans is why I
Mhm.
like it so much.
Yeah, and it's got great parallels because both humans and apes have a leader. It's Caesar and Malcolm, and then they both have a member that the apes have Koba and the humans have Gary Oldman. I forgot his character name, but those are the ones who are, they're they're the ones that are trying to instigate, the conflict and the violence, and they're gonna say that we have to kill the others in order to protect ourselves. But it's the apes that are, the main characters, and we follow their perspective. And Koba is just such a good foil for Caesar. And when I watched this time again, I forgot how much, like in the first like 15 minutes maybe, like Koba is just like he's on the council, man. He's an advisor to Caesar. They're brothers, man. They do their handshake. Like the first thing Koba does in the movie is save Caesar's kid, Blue Eyes. And Koba and Blue Eyes, their relationship is so good, so well done. It really has a lot to say about like nature and nurture because Caesar was nurtured by a human and he understands these people. He has sympathy and empathy for them. And some of the apes, Koba leads the charge in accusing him of caring too much about humans and not enough about apes because he was raised by humans. But Koba was raised in a single cell and he was tortured and just cut apart and treated just terribly by humans. And that's his nurture. That's how he feels to them. And um, just one of the great lines is Caesar says, I don't remember exactly, but it's from humans, Koba only learned hate. There's apes that follow Koba, and there's apes that take his side. But then there's Maurice, and Maurice is in a very, very similar situation. He was a circus animal, treated very poorly. He wasn't like directly tortured, but he probably had pretty bad living conditions, and he probably didn't have a lot of positive experience with humans. And he is just the nicest, most calm, most, he's a chill dude, like he's a nice little orangutan, and he is just so wise and so caring. And he follows Caesar, and he trusts Caesar, and he trusts the humans. He understands the good ones and the bad ones. That's, similar situation. You got Maurice and Koba, and one chooses one way and one chooses the other. I love this movie. I'll talk about it a little bit more when I get to it in my ranking. I mean, is there a better villain in the franchise than Koba? You think? Do you think anyone in the first one tops it?
I don't think there's. I think Proximus is cooler, but I don't think he's like better.
Yeah,
'Cause
I mean
he
Proximus
hasn't
is so
developed
cool,
at all. Yeah.
but like
They just kind of
Koba
introduced
and
first movie.
like until the very, very last scene where Koba is shooting at Maurice and Rocket, like you feel for Koba, man. Like you get him. He's talking to Blue Eyes, and like every time he does, he's saying stuff, and it's like you really understand. You don't understand his perspective, and you don't like him, but you understand why Blue Eyes and a couple other people like Ash follow Koba and say, I think,
Mm.
I think Koba knows what he's talking about. If you like Black Panther, I think this is the good version of Black Panther. I think Black Panther is just a watered down Marvel. But I'm not trying to, Carter's just Marvel, but I think it's just so Disneyified, and like this is the movie that should have been. This is so biting and so gnarly and so unafraid to do things um that like that I've never seen in a blockbuster. It's crazy. And that's like I think it's the expectations that this trilogy set that made me not dislike, but like disappointed a little bit in Kingdom because it doesn't have that. It's a very, very good adventure movie, but it doesn't have it doesn't have the gut punches that this trilogy does. It's not as emotionally affecting, and that's why I just love this trilogy so much.
I had no idea that Andy Serkis played Caesar until like an hour ago.
Yeah, and dude, isn't he incredible?
He is,
Like
yeah.
he's so like phenomenal in his movies. And Toby Kebbell, who plays Koba, incredible as well. Like so good. And Karen Konoval, who plays Maurice, she is amazing. Like it's mind-blowing that these people can just walk around on stilts and just like just perfectly encapsulate this like the spirit of like what a monkey would do in this situation. Love it so much. Anything else to say? What you got about Dawn?
Dawn. I'm trying to remember that actor who like found the apes in the woods.
Jason
The one
Clark.
who's like leading them. Is that the actor's name?
He's the one that wears the hat, and he's the leader of them.
Yeah, yeah. I'm trying to remember. I is that Kurt Russell's son? Is that the same actor? I thought it looked like him a little bit.
Kurt, Kurt Russell. I don't know. I don't think so. His name would
Mm,
probably be Russell. There's a Carrie Russell. I don't think she's Kurt Russell's son. Let me look it up. You want to look it up?
I'm looking it up. Okay, no, yeah, it was Jason Clark. He does kind of look like him a little bit actually, but
I don't know.
let me get the other actor's name. Hold on. Wyatt Russell. That's his son's name.
Okay.
Kind of looks
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
Wyatt Russell.
Yep.
I got him confused, but
But yeah, Jason Clark, like such an underrated actor. He plays a human in this. He's never had anything like he's never had a lead, I guess. He's never been anything like major. I mean, he's never had a major role. He's been in a lot of major stuff, but he's not really the lead in this because it's, the lead characters are the apes. Love that. But he is just incredible. Props to him. That's your number two, right?
yeah, that was my number
All
two.
right. Trying to keep track of it. Not that the rankings matter, I guess ultimately. It's just what our opinions are, but just trying to go with where we're at. This is going to be impossible to follow for the listeners, but that's okay. I'll talk about my number two, and then we'll talk about War for the Planet of the Apes. Let's talk about War for the Planet of the Apes, because that's my number three, and this is the conclusion to the Caesar trilogy. You have War at four, you said?
Yeah,
Okay.
four.
So you're a little lukewarm on it.
Yeah.
Okay. This is no, you like this more than Rise, right?
Yeah, I was going back and forth, but I think I do like it more than Rise.
Where do you think this is lacking in compared to Dawn?
Well, apes lacking apes versus apes. That was kind of one of my favorite parts of
Okay, so that
Dawn. But I don't know. It just makes the humans basically just paints them as evil and then doesn't show any of the humanity like they did in Dawn.
for sure. Yeah, they're just kind of, the big villains in this one. That is kind of a bit of a step back from Dawn. Between the humans and the apes, there's really an attempt to work together and try to be separate species, but coexist. And in this one, it's just the humans are evil and they're here to kill the apes, and the apes got to fight back. And that's a very valid complaint. I think one thing I really like about these movies, when I say these movies, I meant to say Dawn and War, is that instead of like really capping a trilogy like Return of the King style or something, or like Return of the Jedi style, this is more
It
of a
leaves it open for things to
true.
come.
Yeah, but also like as a movie, it's more of a sequel to Dawn of the Planet of the Apes than it is a trilogy capper. I forgot the director of Rise, but then Matt Reeves comes in and he directs Dawn and he directs War. And these are kind of his movies. The flow from Rise to Dawn, there's a big time jump. And it flows great, but there's a time jump. And there's a time jump between Dawn and War as well. Less of one. But like he kind of made these two movies. Like Dawn is the conflict that, you know, ends the world, more or less.
Yeah.
And War is kind of the conclusion to that. The consequences. I don't know, there's a word for that, but it's the consequences of the effects of what happens. And it's very, very Caesar focused. It's very, very internal struggle focused. Caesar has to deal with the guilt of killing Koba because rule number one is ape not kill ape. And it's like, at what point has an ape, forfeited his apeness and his life? Is it when has directly killed multiple other apes? He's broken the rule, and so, but Caesar still struggles with this. He's feeling guilt over it. And there's just two scenes with like 15, 30-second scenes where they bring Toby Kebbell back to play Koba, and it's just haunting, man. He's so good as Koba. I love him so much. So underrated. This is so small scale, like in a weird way, because it's so first person perspective, just from the apes. It starts in the jungle and they're defending their camp, and they let some people live instead of that some prisoners of war, and they send them back and say, hey, just, leave us alone. He says they are the message, Maurice. The fact that we left them alive. And they're planning their escape. They're saying we got to cross the desert. We got to get to Utah or somewhere. I don't know. It's somewhere exactly, but they don't say Utah, obviously. But it
And they
seems
send
like
him like
that's where they're going.
the
You know?
special ops squad.
Yep. Yeah, and they come back and do their research, their zoning. It just follows the perspective of the apes. Like there's so much going on in the world, and the world is falling apart. And dawn is the world falling apart, and war is when it's like it's kind of it's toppling over. It hasn't totally crashed and burned yet, but it's past the point of no return. And the apes are trying to exist in this world where the humans are just they're just trying to take the apes down with them because the humans know that they're done for, they're finished. But there's still just so much hatred in them, and they're uh, trying to take him out. From the apes' perspective, you see like, the humans that come in and they raid their base, and then Caesar wants to get him back. You learn like so little about the world directly, but you can see how expansive it is because there's another army that's coming to come take out this one army at this camp that they're in. And that's why I say it's so small scale, because it's just, even though like the emotions are as big as they've ever been, it's just about Caesar and his band of apes versus this one settlement of people that are trying to blockade themselves and fight this other group of people. And it's Caesar that figures out that, he's like, those humans, they're not coming to join you, they're coming to kill you, aren't they? And they're like, you are a smart ape or whatever. It's Woody Harrelson. Do you think Woody Harrelson is good in this? What are your thoughts on him?
I do. Yeah, I think he's pretty good in this.
I think he
But
is too. I think, like, again, it's like you just compare it to Dawn, and it's like Gary Oldman and Jason Clarke are just better. Like,
yeah,
I would say they're better actors, and also they just give better performances in that movie, and their characters are a little bit better too. It doesn't take away from the movie at all for me, but it just adds to how good Dawn is, in my opinion.
yeah, I wasn't
It's
a big fan of like the snow.
really because I wanted to talk about that. I
Yeah,
think like that's like one of the coolest things about this is the aesthetic, man.
I think
Especially in the
like
yeah.
it works sometimes, and then other times just throws me off. I don't know.
I think it's great because it's like, like 80% of human population has died off and the earth is getting extremely cold because of that. I think like it starts and there's a lot of rain and then they go to the beach and it's just beautiful, man. They like you see the ocean and these four monkeys just riding horses and the sunsets in the background and they're just sprinting on their horses, making tracks in the sand, and the score plays like legitimately, um, Michael Giacchino's score in War is like, I'm trying to think. I don't want to exaggerate. It's probably top 30 of all time soundtracks for me. It's that good. It's so good. I think Maurice is maybe at his best in this. No, no, again, Dawn. He's at his best in Dawn. But he's so good in this because him and Nova, the girl they find, like just again, like that's something that like Caesar has to grapple with. It's just like more guilt and more like doing things that you don't want to
Oh,
do to
that's where they get Nova from. Okay.
yeah, making choices that are just so hard to make, but you have to because like it's the only way to survive because this guy that they meet, they stumble across and everyone freezes. And then instantly he pulls a gun and is going to shoot him. And then Caesar kind of flanks him and gets to him first before he's able to, kill Maurice and Rocket and Luca. And and then they go into his little shack and he's got a daughter. And it's like, man, it's just heartbreaking. But like the dude just like, what do you do? And like that's the stuff that Kingdom doesn't have. That's what these movies have. There's just so much gray area and there's so much just like tough situations to work through. But then Maurice just really adopts this girl. And even though like she isn't an ape, she's kind of like becomes an honorary ape, and they do a lot of stuff with her. They carry her around. And it's the great line. It's Caesar is like, I can't take her, Maurice. And Maurice says, I know, but I can't leave her. Great stuff. And then
And they find that other ape.
They find Bad Ape,
Yeah.
the silly little monkey who wears a vest. He's great. What do you think about him? He gets so much hate, dude.
He does? I don't know. I
Yeah.
didn't think he
Do
was
you
that
like
bad.
as comic relief, do you think he works? Do you think he doesn't?
I think he does. Yeah, I think it
Yeah.
works.
He's been compared to like Jar Jar, and there people say like messes with the tone of the film, but like I disagree. I think there's a lot to his character. I think he is like like he's very silly, but like it is very funny whenever he talks, man. He's just like he
Mhm.
brings the silliness like to the forefront of his movies. Like they're just
He's
a
way
bunch of
better than Jar Jar.
it's just a bunch of talking monkeys, you know? It's like inherently silly. But I love that they take themselves so seriously and they're not just silly monkeys, but they're also able to be silly monkeys when they want to be silly monkeys. So I like it. Bad Ape is great. But there's the one scene with Bad Ape and Caesar where everyone else is asleep and like Bad Ape says, uh, who is girl? And Caesar says, I don't know. And then Bad Ape says, but she's with you. And Caesar says, she has no one else. And so like it's just Caesar like, saying going from we can't take her to, we have no one else. And because Maurice, is with him, he understands Maurice's perspective and he trusts Maurice's wisdom and they're just gonna go along because it's more important to take care of people than to hurt people. And then that's what gets Bad Ape to come with them too, because he's just mortified of, prisons. He grew up in a zoo. He saw a lot of his friends get killed, and then when he sees the girl and is talking to Caesar one-on-one, he says, "Yeah, I had a son," and then they talk about that, and he's like, I'll take you to the camp." Because he sees Caesar and he sees how good of a father Caesar is, a surrogate father to this girl. Because Caesar just lost one of his sons, so he's taking on another kid. All in all, I think this is like it's maybe the just most fearless third movies in a trilogy ever as of this point because it calls itself war and there's just like so little like actual action aside from like the opening like 15 minutes which are just done so well. It's so incredible. And then after that it's just about
At like the very end, there's
yeah, at the very
more
end there's a
action.
tiny bit, but it's not what you expect from a film called, War for the Planet of the Apes. It's just does so many different things. It's like a revenge movie, a movie about, what all the other ones do, like connecting with others, becoming a parent, and then it becomes a prison movie and then an escape movie at the end, and it's all just so intense and so
Escaping the avalanche.
yep, and they have to outrun an avalanche, and there's just like so many things that they do. They have to dig the tunnels, they have got to get the kids out, and they send them on through the top. Um, and then there's just the standoff stuff between Caesar and the Colonel because the Colonel is a goofy, like mustache twirling villain as they call him. But whenever he interacts with Caesar, whenever he's not just leading his men or whatever, not as, standard military guy, him facing off with Caesar, I think is great. Him just like putting Caesar through torture and then Caesar standing up and winning food and water for the apes, but Caesar is still kept in solitary confinement pretty much. And then Rocket sacrificing himself. He doesn't die, but he gets captured so that he can save Nova because Nova is the one that he goes and he Nova gives she walks into the camp, sneaks in, and gives Caesar water because all the other apes got it, but um, he's trying to, the Colonel's trying to break them. He's
Yeah.
trying to not directly kill Caesar to create a revolt, but he's going to starve Caesar out, and so make him just weak and give in. And so Nova comes and gives him water, and then all the apes call her over and they give her food and say take it to him, and she takes it to him. Just so emotional, dude. I love these movies, man. These monkey movies, they make me cry, dude. I'm not even kidding. Love them so much. What else do I have to say about war?
Wasn't it like the doll that gave the Colonel
The
this?
doll that Nova carries around carries the disease, as we find out, because the Colonel takes it from her, and then he gets infected, and he loses the ability to speak and becomes just another dumb person, which is what he's like fighting against and proclaiming that his army isn't because they're all survivors. They don't have the disease. Anyone that does contract the disease, he shoots. It's found out that Nova's father was a deserter with Nova because Nova got the disease, and so instead of, staying with the army and getting his daughter killed, he defected, and then he is killed by the apes because he was going to kill the apes, and so it all weaves together. Nothing like is directly told to you, but you understand it as the movie goes along. You can pick up details on the world. I think it's like war is maybe the most rich in its environment and how it builds the world. I keep saying that, but it's how it builds the world and the expansiveness of it, even though it's so simple and so first person. Nothing but praise for this movie. My top four are all 10 out of 10s, obviously. Planet of the Apes at 4 and War at 3, sorry. And then I have Escape at number 2.
Rise, War, and Kingdom are all sixes for me. And then
And
Dawn's
then
like between a 7 and 8. And then number
cool.
one is a Planet of the Apes is a 9 for me. So
I'm talking a lot. I'm going to be talking a lot more, but so I'm sorry for that, guys. Trying to get Joseph in a little bit more, but I've just seen more movies, so I have a lot more to yap about. And I'm the monkey man, so I'm yapping.
happens.
But let's talk about Planet of the Apes. Let's go to the original, because this is my number 4. This is your number 1, right?
Yes, it is.
All right. So this is the classic, the one that started them all. Based off a book of the same name. It's about 3 astronauts that travel into space during the 60s, and
They
what's their
come
goal?
back and I don't even. They're going off to like explore something, right? Or wasn't to like save Earth or something like that. I don't know.
I don't know
Something like that.
exactly, but they go off on some
They're
sort of
looking for
mission.
something.
Yeah, and they go into cryo sleep where they freeze themselves and they, can sleep for a long time and function. But something malfunctions and they wake up hundreds of years past when they should have woken up, and they crash land on a planet. They get out and they're just wandering this desolate planet now. It's very slow paced. It's 1960s sci-fi, slow paced, a lot of paranoia and just moody and like borderline, like horror moments and a lot of thrills.
Yeah, like when they find the scarecrows.
Yeah, and it's eerie. It's trying to create an atmosphere. It's like what is going on,
And
All
those scarecrows were in Kingdom too.
Yeah,
Also.
they were. Yep. There's a lot of great references in Kingdom. Kingdom is a great movie. It's just like it just doesn't hit where it needs to hit. But yeah, eventually they come across humans, right? They come across like a herd of humans, don't they?
Yeah, yeah, they
Like
come
like
across like
what's wrong with them?
the ones that like can't speak.
So they come across a bunch of humans that can't speak, and they're like, like very confused and very like think they're very silly. And then the apes appear out of nowhere, right? This crazy music blares, and you see the apes riding on horses, and they've got their guns and they've got their
Yeah, the
nets.
guns. Yeah,
Yep. And they chase them down, and they, kill a bunch of humans and capture a bunch more. And like you realize, like they're hunting them, and the apes like kind of serve as the species at the top of the food chain in this society, in this planet. I think 2 of the astronauts are killed, and the main one, what's his name? He's captured.
yeah. Two of them were captured, right?
Yes, 2 of them captured, one's killed. Yes.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it's Charlton
But
Heston
then the other one can't speak.
as
They both can't
Taylor.
speak.
Yes. Well, they stay quiet because they're like, well, humans here don't talk, so I'm not going to talk. But Taylor is captured. He's thrown in a cage. He doesn't say anything. And then he's you're taken to the ape city where he's thrown in a cage, and you see all this society and this craziness. It's so cool. It's so well done. And at that point, that starts to get into the ape versus ape, right? That you like because he's
Mhm.
kind of staying quiet. He's in the background, and you meet Cornelius and Zira, and there's chimpanzees, and they're doctors and psychologists. What do they call themselves exactly? I don't remember.
Something like that.
Something like that. But they're scientists. They study science.
Yeah, and then he starts writing because he like didn't have water, right? That's why like he tries to speak, but like his throat's really dry or something.
Yeah, yeah.
And then
Yes,
eventually
he
he
gets shot.
does.
He gets shot in the throat. Yeah, because he's not smart
Shot,
enough to
right?
make the
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
decision to like, I'm going to stay quiet. He gets shot in the throat and lives, but it's damaged and he can't talk. but he's trying to talk and he's like grunting and making these noises, and then he writes, yeah, and they're like astounded, like he just wrote something. And as you learn about the ape city, you see that there's three species of apes in the ape city. They got the chimps, there's the gorillas, and there's the orangutans. Like if you've seen the original, not the original, I keep saying that. If you've seen the Caesar trilogy, it doesn't really sync up with that. It doesn't sync up with real life either much because the chimps are like the smart ones. They're the scientists. They kind of do a lot of things. They don't have a lot of say in the worlds and in the political landscape of the ape city, and they're just the scholars. They're trying to understand the world more. Then there's the gorillas, who are the strongest, so they're the soldiers. They make up the army. They're the ones that do the hunting, and they've all got guns and stuff. And the orangutans are the religious ones. They run the ape church. They keep the ape scrolls and all the teachings of the great ape, or whatever they call him, the first ape who gave him all those. And they know all this about apes, and they know all this information about humans. And they're the ones that really run the society. And as you see in Dr. Zaius, who is just a great character, is kind of the leader of them all. And it becomes Zaius versus Zira and Cornelius, leader and spiritual leader of the apes versus the two psychologists who are trying to understand humans and understand apes by understanding humans more.
Eventually, what was the first words he says? It was like,
First words he says are, "Get your stinking paws off me, you damn dirty ape."
yeah,
And that's the famous
that
line
was
where
pretty
he
good.
gets caught and everyone's like, "Oh no, we spoke." It's paralleled so well in Rise of the Planet of the Apes, where Caesar says no, and then everyone's like, "Oh, whoa, he spoke." And again in Dawn, where he says, first he says go to the group of five or whatever, and then he says, "Apes do not want war." Like
Yeah, at the camp, yeah.
where they show up and they open the doors to all that. That's such a good shot. And Gary Oldman's like, it's a lot more than 80, because Jason Clarke said there was like 80, and then they show up with the whole squad pulls up, and they've all got their giant spears and they're riding horses, and Caesar just goes apes, and everyone goes and they gasp and they're like screw, like what the heck, and then like he says, then he continues to talk and they go silent because they're trying to hear him. It's just such a good moment. I love Dawn so much, if you don't know. But yeah, just get your paws off me. And they're, like, oh man. And so now the apes are facing this conflict because they believe that the apes are the dominant species of the earth. They're the
That
ones,
humans like can't be intelligent.
and there's no such thing as intelligence in humans. And like to one could speak is like unheard of. And it's like, it just makes no sense to them. There's something that must be wrong, you know? And but this is something that proves Cornelius and Zira. I don't know if it proves them right, but they were like studying. What were they doing exactly?
Yeah, they were studying something like that, and then they got like in trouble for it a lot.
They're trying to work with Taylor, and they're trying to say, hey, you're proving a lot of what we're doing, and that, just we're all just primates pretty much, and that,
Mhm.
we're all just animals pretty much, and that intelligence and consciousness is not exclusive to apes.
And then they go
And it's not
to
exclusive to apes just because the orangutans have a scroll that says it is.
that cave that's like past the. There was forbidden zones in Planet of the Apes, right?
Yes, the Forbidden Zone is a big deal. You're not supposed to go there, and we'll get to that. But yeah, they
Oh,
love
because of the yeah, 'cause this
they give one of the
statue.
astronauts a lobotomy, and they keep Taylor so he can't talk anymore. And they're like, look, this they show all the apes. They're like, look, this proves that this one person Taylor is just he's just an anomaly. This is something crazy, and because his other people that he claimed could talk, he can't talk because they took his brain out. So Taylor is like, oh man, like he's just struggling to try to prove himself, and Cornelius and Zero are on his side, and because of this, they break him out, and then they escape, and the orangutans are trying to hunt him down, and they go to the Forbidden Zone, and they go to the cave, and what do they find in the cave?
I'm trying. I couldn't actually remember that. I've been trying to remember that for a while. But I know they find something in there that changes or like that's like proof, and then they blow it up and seal it
Yeah.
off. I just
So
can't remember what was it.
So it's like it's exciting to Cornelius and Zero because they find proof that they find proof of human activity and proof that humans were once intelligent creatures and once like were the rulers of this planet of the apes. Yeah, so what they find is that proof that humans were intelligent at the time, and um this proves evolution for the chimps, which is what they were something they've been studying. It proves that, humans uh originally evolved from apes, and then they evolved to become very stupid, and then apes evolved to become very smart, and then there's just been this influx of what's been happening on this planet, and that apes now run the world, and this is something that the apes cannot let get out because it will just create chaos in their society that they have organized and that they have structured in the way that they've structured. Dr. Zaius gets some of the apes to do is to seal the cave up, blow it up, and destroy all the evidence. And then Taylor's able to fight his way out and overpower some and capture Dr. Zaius. And then he has a hostage situation, so they communicate back and forth. So he's able to, keep himself from getting captured and killed again. And he's with Cornelius and Zerus still. So they're trying to negotiate as well.
Wants to go like the other end of the beach, and then
Well, it's not really the other end of the beach because one thing I didn't really remember, but it's like from the time he leaves Dr. Zaius, it's like 5 minutes of him just on horseback, just riding through the landscape, which is like very surprising. But it's a very slow-paced movie. Doesn't really feel that way, and you don't remember it like that, which means a lot because it's very engaging and very captivating. But it takes its time because essentially he wanders the landscape and he's still on a beach for the last famous final scene. But what this movie is famous for above all is the final shot, final scene. But like the entire finale of this, like it's incredible. When I was rewatching it, I'm like, dude, like the last like 5 minutes before the last 5 minutes are just so good. They're like almost even they're almost on the level of that final shot because I wrote it down because I had to. Taylor just, he just fights his way through people and he ties Dr. Zaius up. He grabs the gun and he's shooting back, and he negotiates for a horse and for the girl whose name is Nova, right?
possibly
It was
I
the
don't
girl
remember
he
her
was
name.
thrown
Yeah,
in a
it was
cage with.
with the cage.
Yeah, and they both escape. Him and Nova, who's a dumb human who can't talk, but he's trying to teach her. He's trying to get her to learn and become, more like him. And he says, I need a horse, I need her, and he's like, I need a gun and ammunition. And then he gets what he gets, and they give it to him to save Dr. Zaius.
And he's like, you might not like what you find.
Yeah, and like before he goes off, Dr. Zaius is like, he says with the smugness, he's like, I see, Dr. Zaius, I beat you, and we proved exactly, that you're wrong. And Zaius is like, no, like he says essentially, I've known all this. I know this, and I keep this hidden because of what you are and how you act. And he says, all my life I've awaited your coming and I've dreaded it like death itself. These movies go so hard, man. And he's like, look at you. Look what you've done. He's like, you've just killed a couple of these apes and you've had me tied up, like, you're an animal. He's like, you're not an intelligent person. You're not the dominant species and you don't deserve to be. If it got out that, humans are this species that are akin to apes, it would descend into chaos because we have a peaceful society. It's, not the ideal society, but they want the apes to believe that, and they run it. It's close to a utopia. It's just built on a noble lie, and there's a lot. This is the greatest noble lie movie ever, maybe. I mean, I haven't seen one better. Um, it's a very hard concept to do, but these movies are so good at tackling these hard philosophical issues, man. And this one, it just does it so well because it's the first one to do it. It's just like stunning how it manages to weave around these gray areas. I wrote this down. He says, when Dr. Zaius is like, no, I essentially, you didn't beat me. I know exactly what you are. I know exactly what I'm doing. Just because I'm tied up. He says, Cornelius, he says, grab the scroll. He's like, read this, essentially what the Bible is. And then Cornelius is reading one of the verses, and he says, beware the beast man, for he is the devil's pawn. Alone among God's primates, he kills. It's so funny among God's primates because like they're all primates. But he says alone among God's primates, humans kill for sport, they kill for lust, and they kill for greed. He will murder his own brother to possess his brother's land. Do not let him breed in great numbers, for he will make a desert of his home and yours. And like Cornelius and Zira are, firmly on Taylor's side. They're like, because they're just trying to make scientific progress. They're not anti the religiousness of the orangutans, but they prioritize their science. And it's at that moment that Cornelius is like starts to question, and he's still like just, him and Zira are just saddened that the cave blew up and that everything is destroyed and they're going to become fugitives essentially. But he's just like man, like maybe he's right. And it's not like a good feeling of he's right. It's just like a feeling of despair, man, because like Taylor has just proved exactly what Zaius is afraid of. And then the incredible line of don't look for it, Taylor. You're not gonna like what you find. And you want to go ahead and say what exactly happens and what is famous?
Yeah, so he goes off on his adventure trip, and then he finds a Statue of Liberty fallen over on a beach, and that's kind of the big reveal of they're still on Earth.
So essentially his ship got turned around and went back to Earth years and years, thousands of years in the future. And then he just collapses on the beach. And it's like it's been, parodied to death, but you maniacs, you blew it up. Just unreal. It sounds silly, but like there aren't that many movies that like just evoke that feeling out of you, like just in that situation, like it's an understandable reaction. Like that is a nightmare to be like, like that reveal that you've been on Earth the whole time, and now everything that and like he said, like in like to his astronauts, he's like, yeah, well, everyone we ever knew is dead, but like there's a difference between, everyone is dead because you traveled a couple hundred years in the future, and everyone is dead because the planet that you knew is no longer the planet that you knew.
And in these movies, like a lot of the humans try and blame the apes for it, but really they're the ones that created it because they were the ones that created talking apes, and they were the ones that
And
created
it,
it in the
yeah,
lab.
it just, and that's what I said earlier. Like that's the brilliance of these movies is they side with the apes. They just show the folly and the ego and the brutality of humans, and they say this is what it leads to. And here are the apes, and they're the different species. They act as like the aliens essentially, but in reality, look at it. It's like look at what the humans do and look at what the apes do. You're not supposed to come away from these movies rooting for the humans, even though in this one originally you follow the humans, and it's the twist that makes it just all the better. The first time you watch it, it's just, well, here's the big question. Did you know that what the twist was before you saw this?
I didn't in the beginning, but I kind of started to realize
Okay, so you
as
figured
soon
it
as I
out.
saw the humans there, I was like, yeah.
Okay. Have you seen the final scene, or had you seen like a picture of the
I
Statue
hadn't
of
seen the
Liberty?
final scene there.
Really? Okay. So like were you just like totally shocked? Like
Yeah, I thought they had gone on a different planet, but then when I saw like that
you
little
kind of pieced it together, yeah.
group of dumb humans, okay, well, yeah.
The first time, like I had it spoiled for me, just not from like someone directly, but it's just something that like it's hard to avoid it because of pop culture. But it's
Mm.
still like I've seen it like 3 times maybe, and it's still just such a shock because of the atmosphere that this movie creates, the mood and there's just the sense of tension and the how it rivets up and crashes down in the finale.
And also, I'd also already seen War in that whole trilogy there, so I kind of knew that the virus is
True, obviously. So yeah, it like yeah, even if you aren't aware of
But originally, I thought it
the
was a
twist,
planet of.
the existence of the new ones kind of make you say, oh, well, uh, there aren't, there really aren't that many movies that I can think of. There are a handful, but there are few and far between that can just evoke a sense of just utter grief at the final scene of this, even on multiple viewings. It's just like, man, like it is, it ends and it's like you are just down to the dumps, man. There is just it is the opposite of uplifting and hopeful. And it's just so cool when like just a stupid movie, like a story and some images can evoke that emotion out of you. I mean, yeah, it's the most iconic twist of all time, probably that and maybe Empire Strikes Back. Anything else to say about this one?
I don't think so. I think it's the most well done in terms of like I feel like it feels like a bigger world because like Rise, you're in like the city basically most of the time, and then this you're just like on this barren
Yeah.
planet out.
It's just yeah, just this planet that's just a wasteland. So yeah, absolutely. It does feel like the biggest. Um, it's definitely intentional. I don't think like personally, I think that's intentional. I don't think that's a knock on the other ones. But
Yeah, yeah, no, but
it's expansive and it's yeah, because he's just like he's just wandering around this deserted planet essentially. And then he finds an ape town and then he wanders back out into the Forbidden Zone on a deserted planet. Yeah, 10 out of 10 for me.
9 out of 10 for me.
Solid. Real quickly, not going to spoil it, but my number two is Escape from the Planet of the Apes. This is the third of the originals. So it goes Planet of the Apes, then it goes Beneath the Planet of the Apes that I talked about. That's very similar to Planet in the first half, and then gets good. It deals with picks up on Cornelius and Zero's story as fugitives, and then it gets goofy in the third act, unfortunately, with a weird plot twist again. But then after Beneath comes Escape. And in Escape, as if Beneath hadn't totally ruined the lore already, um, in Escape, the first thing they do is Cornelius and Zira are they're on the run, they're fugitives. And like it picks up a little bit with the I mean it doesn't directly pick up in the way that it's like, shows them running, but like it essentially carries over from Beneath. You see how Beneath ends and you see how Cornelius, Zira, and one other ape, another scientist, chimpanzee, they get out and they time travel. So they time travel back to Earth around, 1971 when this movie was made, and they have escaped from the Planet of the Apes, and they are now the outliers in a society that is shocked by them. So instead of doing the original one over, it does an inverse of it. So humans are like shocked that these apes are talking. Like the opening scene is great. It's a crashed spaceship in the water and because the planet is, inhabited by humans, they don't have to escape themselves. It's these three astronauts, and there's a rescue team going out to the ship, and they rescue him. They bring him ashore, and they take off their helmets, and they're these chimpanzees, hysterical stuff. These chimpanzees, eventually, they talk just like the humans talk in the original. It shocks the world. But it's like humans are like, this is crazy. Apes, they're saying apes could never be an intelligent species like that. And
Yeah,
they have these three scientists here to disprove that. It's like maybe the goofiest, like intentionally. Like Battle is the goofiest because Battle sucks. But like there's scenes in this where like they go shopping and it's so funny. But like the fact that the one where the apes go shopping is like my second favorite is like it's a testament to how crazy these movies are and how like they
they just
balance
like go
tone
to a
so well.
mall.
What?
They just like go to a mall or something.
They go to a strip mall, yes, and they get clothes for themselves because, they need clothes, they need to fit in with the humans. So silly, but they like you either buy it or you don't. It's like you can say, they're, B movies and they're wearing rubber masks and then it's silly, it doesn't make any sense and they're shopping, or it can be like, they're talking about the end of the world and they're talking about the end of humanity and it's using this story to get there and it's talking about a lot of concepts that are extremely interesting. And I don't know, I just like Monkey, so I buy into it, I guess. But it doesn't quite reach the level of just like existential dread that the original one does, but it almost gets there. And it tells a really crazy story. It's these apes on the run eventually, and they're just trying to get away. They kind of meet two other human scientists again to inverse. The other one, they meet like, kind of like versions of themselves are supposed to be from the original. Not literally from time travel, but like in the original, there's two scientists that are apes that help the human, and now there's two scientists that are humans that help the apes. They
Uh,
escape. It's
they're the same one.
intense. They have a kid, and then the government is like, all right, well, that kid is gonna, he's gonna like he's essentially gonna be the new species of apes. That's what's gonna wipe us all out. Humanity, like they first don't want to accept it. And then eventually they do, and they're like, well, these guys, they're gonna kill us all eventually. And then they can't accept that it's just humans that kill themselves off. It's they have to have an enemy. They have to find that enemy, and the apes are the enemy, and they have to stop them. And they have to stop this child. How are humans going to act when they're faced with their fate, when they're faced with what's inevitable? And it's shown in many different ways in this one. Another crushing ending. And it's just like it's incredible that these movies had just the balls to do what they did and like to pull no punches at all. And the first one just
Mhm.
set the precedent for that. And then each one is like it's not quite as like soul crushing, but they are not afraid to be just depressing action blockbusters, which is so ballsy. I cannot recommend this one enough. It is not for everyone. It's not going to be like it's not going to instantly win you over if you're not already, sold on these. If you think the original one is goofy and dated, you ain't going to like this one. But I highly recommend it. Beneath the Planet of the Apes, like, had me very worried that I had made a mistake choosing to watch the sequels. But this one, like, it blew it out of the water for me. And it's pretty much because of this one that I think I consider this the best franchise of all time.
Wow, all time.
Yeah, really. It's just between the four movies that I consider just all-time greats, just perfection incarnate. And then there's two of them that are just really, really good to tack on there. And there's only one bad one, so I I struggle to think of anything better. I don't really consider Lord of the Rings a franchise, so I mean you
Yeah,
can, I
and
guess. It's
there's the
like
Hobbit's part of that, so it's like
yeah, but it's like they're all books and they're all like I don't know. Lord of the Rings is its own trilogy and everything else is fan fiction. I like The Hobbit, I like TV show, but it's pretty contained. Unlike these, where there's no containment in these. And at number one, I have Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. So just
Apes of
perfection
Apes.
incarnate, truly. I cannot recommend this movie enough. Like watch Rise, because you have to watch Rise, and then just so you can get to Dawn. Because Dawn is it's just one of the best movies of this century. Like I'm not even kidding. Like it's not like top five or anything, but like again, I'll say it's top 30. It's easily top 30. It's one of the best
Of this
action
century?
blockbusters. What?
Of this century?
Yeah, of the 21st century. And I'm
Okay,
not even
okay.
kidding when I say that. Yeah. Because like competition is very, very measly and because we've gone soft, I think it's the best anti-war film of the 21st century, which I know was like an absurd statement, but I stand by that like strongly. I think it's just such an impactful and mature way to look at conflict and how conflict arises and how leaders can be flawed and because Caesar, who's one of my favorite characters in fiction, like is a very
Mhm.
flawed character, but he's just a very good leader because of his trust and his
His
willingness
morals.
and his care and his love for his apes and his just desire not to fight with humans. It's so rare we get a character like him that's just a good leader that like you can look up to. Like often like we're shown leaders that you're supposed to look up to, but they're really not that great because of certain things. Or we're shown, like examples of leaders that you're not supposed to look up to, and they're, like Dune is a great example of that. But like Caesar is just he's just so warm-hearted, but at the same time he absolutely has ice in his veins, and he's just the perfect person, man. I totally record
Caesar
this and I
was the
stand by it, but like
troublemaker.
yeah, you watch these movies like whenever I do, man. Like it's hard to like get out of this mindset and get out of this world. When I watch another movie, I'm just like, where are the apes, man? Where is the apes? Where is the conflict? Where is the heart? Because that's how good these things are. Um, that's how
And
highly I hold them.
would you consider Oppenheimer to be anti-war? I think
I
it
would.
is.
Yes, I extremely yes. And I just think this is better than Oppenheimer. Genuinely, Oppenheimer's great.
That's
Oppenheimer is just it's shown it from a very I mean, you consider Path of Glory one of your favorites ever, right?
yeah, yeah.
From
That's
Kubrick.
you
And I
said
would
anti-war this century.
yeah, but that's from the 50s. So like and that's one of my favorites too, Path of Glory. But that's kind of split
Yeah, that's my
into two.
favorite
If you
Kubrick.
split Path of Glory into two parts, you get Dawn of the Planet of the Apes and Oppenheimer. And Oppenheimer is the second half, and Dawn is the first half of Paths.
Kind of.
It's just yeah, kind of. But like you get that scene of Blue Eyes who's just becoming a little detached from his father and understanding Koba more and more and wanting to follow Koba. And then Koba leads the charge to the human base. And then you see the action scene. That's the biggest action scene of the franchise. And it's not like this big battle. It's shown from Blue Eyes' perspective. He's running around and he's terrified and he's watching all his friends get shot. And he's watching people try to carry apes that are injured out of the fray and watching them get shot. And he sees Koba, who's just so much bloodlust, and he picks up the double machine guns and he shoots down the wall, like everyone on the wall, the snipers. And you see it from the humans' perspective too. You see Gary Oldman, who is the Koba of the humans, and you see him help out this one kid, and he loads his gun and unjams it for him at the beginning of one of the action scenes. And then, like 5 minutes later, he looks over and he sees him, shot through the head. And it's just like it, everything that Malcolm and Caesar have been trying to do, and there's so much tension there, and it's like just angst because these species don't trust each other, and they have so much reason not to. But it's like at that moment, instantly, Ash understands like everything, and not Ash, Blue Eyes,
Blue
Caesar's
eyes.
son.
Yeah.
Ash is his friend. Caesar is saved by Jason Clarke's Malcolm, brought to the house. He sees his old window, sees his old videotape, and then Blue Eyes is comes back and he just says, "Fear makes others follow," and like that's what it is. It's like it takes so much bravery to try to stand up for peace because when you're afraid, the option is you stick with your side and you shoot the other people because we think we're stronger. And if we're in control, we have nothing to fear. And you believe this in order to quench your fear. And Blue Eyes gets this. He comes to Caesar, and Caesar says, the apes seek strongest branch. It's such a funny line, but it's so true. He makes the awful decisions like I have to kill Koba. I have to break the one rule that I have to break one of the two rules that apes have. It's all about fear. Koba lets his own fear get the best of him. Because Koba, like Caesar, cares for the apes. He just cares for them in unhealthy ways. Koba's fear of humans overpowers his care for the apes. He does everything he does because he is afraid. He leads with fear because fear makes others follow. Caesar's ideas seem dangerous, and Koba's ideas seem simple, and that's how Koba is able to get the apes to follow him. When Koba says apes together strong, he's twisting Caesar's words. He's not using that phrase to encourage unity and strength amongst apes. Instead, he's using it to create an us versus them mentality. It takes bravery to stand up for peace. Nothing I could say could do any service to this movie. It is so well written, so well acted, so well directed. It's intense, it's thrilling, it's captivating, and it is a tragedy. And it works so well. Check this one out. It's worth it.
Definitely worth it.
Top three characters. Who do you think? Who you got?
Top three characters.
Yeah, in the franchise.
Okay, so Caesar, one, Koba, two,
Okay.
and then
Top five. There's too many. Top five. Sorry. Because I got five.
I guess Maurice three. I hope Proxima's at four, honestly.
Okay. Solid.
I don't know actually. I don't know who I put the five.
Okay. You can think on it, or if you don't have one, doesn't matter. I gotta think
I'm
real
not
quick
sure I
about
have one actually.
I gotta think about my order quick, but I know Caesar's number one. Because Caesar is like he's gotta be top 10 characters in fiction for me. Love him as just this monkey who just his purpose in life is to protect his people at all costs, but not in the way that that phrase is usually, considered about leaders. He's just a peacemaker at heart. Number two, Maurice. Maurice is such a chill dude, man. Just want to give him a hug. There's a great scene in Dawn where Maurice is just like outside the tent where Malcolm and his wife and their son are sleeping, spending the night, and all the apes just they kind of just invade the camp, but like not like as a way to like show strength. They're just like, oh, they're here. Let's go sit with them and chill with them. It's so funny. And it's like it would be like a
Yeah,
scary
yeah,
scene,
and
but it's
then like
played.
he's it's like a book or like a toy that he
Yeah, it's a
has with like
book
the
because the
daughter, right?
yeah, and it's like Malcolm's wife was killed by the virus and he had his son. Malcolm is with someone else now, and his son is like Malcolm's wife is trying to connect with his son kind of through the whole movie, and his son is very quiet and very distant, and he just reads a lot. And then Maurice is kind of over there, and he takes the book over to Maurice, and then they're reading together, and he's explaining like words, and Maurice is like doing signing and like doing, and he's just makes his monkey noises and goes ooh, 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 ooh. So funny, so silly, but it's like it's just a joy to watch this big old orangutan just interact with people in a very peaceful way, dude. I don't know. It's just this is why movies were made. Maurice at two. I gotta go Koba at three. I think
Yeah.
he's one of the greatest villains of all time. I think he's the perfect foil to Caesar. Um, because he rivals him in every way, but he doesn't hate Caesar, but he's driven so far that he does hate Caesar at the end and he shoots Caesar. But like Caesar says, we gotta let him in here, we gotta let him do their human work. And then Koba's like he points to his cut on his lip and says human work. And he points to his eye that doesn't work and says human work. And it's like you feel for him, man.
Yeah.
You feel
'Cause
for him
all he was raised was, getting tortured by humans in a
yep.
cage.
From humans, Koba only learned hate. But then, Koba is just you can see why the apes would want to follow him in an extent. He grabs both of the machine guns and rides his horse, and then he single-handedly takes out the tank and busts through the wall and he gets the apes in. I'll say, man, it's hard. I love Cornelius and Zira, especially in Escape, but I think I'm gonna
I
leave him
wasn't even
off.
thinking about that. The
Yeah,
older
I'll say
ones.
Dr. Zaius at four, and to tie between Rocket and Bad Ape. I don't know. Both great side characters. Rocket's character development over the films is so like he's a very minor character, but he's great. Dude, when he
Mhm.
says when he's talking to Caesar in war, and he says, "I know what it's like to lose a son," made me cry, man. Like these movies are so silly. I get it, you can laugh at me, but man, like they take themselves so dead serious, and it works so well. Love Rocket.
I think Zayas will be five. I wasn't even thinking about the
Okay,
original ones.
Zaius is so good. I forgot exactly what he says. I should have wrote this down, but like when he's talking to Taylor alone in his quarters, that whole discussion
Mhm.
there is like it's the best scene in the movie apart from the climax at the end, I think. Anything else to say?
Apes together strong.
Apes together strong. I believe it.
Together strong. Say his words.
Say his words. I love how they talk, bro. It's just like everything is so silly, but like it makes sense that an ape would like doesn't have the voice box that, can fluently talk. So they kind of like it sounds like they're struggling almost, but it makes it like intense
But for
and
Proximus, it makes it
epic.
sound like more inspiring.
It makes it sound like threatening and inspiring at the same time, and just say his words. So good. And yeah, it's great about like Caesar like talks more and more with every movie. So good. Every detail. I could talk about these movies forever, forever. Love them. But we won't. Next up, uh,
May Linklater.
yes. Okay,
What
so
else?
like we
Maybe
have the
both.
2023 fully recorded. We've had it fully recorded
Oh
for a
wait,
while.
it isn't released yet.
No, Warren's editing it. I'd be very surprised if it wasn't out by the time this is out. But then again, I wouldn't be surprised if this was out first. Knowing Warren,
Yeah, he said it was gonna be like a
it's
long
really up
movie.
to him, but we appreciate everything Warren does. Absolutely.
Oh yeah.
Big fan of Warren. But then, yeah, May, if you want to do it, I'm down to do it. I've seen them all. I'm ready
I
whenever you
still have
are.
like three more, but
Okay,
I could probably get through them pretty
okay.
easy. And
I
then
mean,
Linklater.
and then yes, Linklater. We're either gonna do um so we're gonna do Hitman, absolutely. And if Will and Warren want to see Hitman, then we'll do two Linklater podcasts. We'll do one
Okay.
with the four of us just doing Hitman, and then we'll do another one talking about Linklater movies. If they don't want to see Hitman, we'll just do one. We'll talk about Linklater movies and we'll talk about Hitman with it. These are my, in the way that Linklater's your guy, Caesar is my guy. So appreciate you jumping on doing this, even though you're not quite as, you
Yeah,
know,
of course.
blindly passionate about the apes as I am.
I mean, I like them. I don't think there's.
Oh
I
yeah,
haven't seen a bad
I know,
Apes
gotcha.
movie.
Awesome. Well, don't watch Battle then, and you never will.
Is it
Watch Beneath
Escape?
and Escape and
Beneath the
Conquest.
Escape.
Like if you really want to, highly recommend Beneath and Escape. Beneath because you have to see it to get to Escape. And then Conquest is great. Okay. Thanks for listening, everyone. Appreciate it. We are the Apes, and talking about movies is our business.